It's really interesting. Boots to Boardroom. And we have Guillem Balaguer, broadcaster, Spanish journalist, author as well, who's going to be our moderator for the next session. And we have Guilherme Van Cooper, who's the CEO of Berlin Sports Group, Alexander Bowden, who's CEO of People First, and Obuchi Onyegu from US Soccer Federation. Please welcome to the stage. The floor is yours, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, that's the name of the panel, Boots to Boardroom, which will be a conversation on how today's players and former players use the platform of professional sport to become business and leadership figures. It's about how they transform their reputation, networks, and mindset, very important that, into new arenas. So I'm especially pleased to have with us three very different voices from the game, each with their own view on the subject. So to kick us off, let me ask you how your current work or situation connects to our theme. Who wants to start? How would you?
Ladies first. Chivalry.
You always trying to throw me under the bus already.
Chivalry is not dead.
So, how it connects is I have a background as a professional dancer. I had to make that transition into something else when it was not sustainable anymore. And I found my way into hiring, talent acquisition, consulting, HR, and eventually career coaching. So now I have a platform that supports people through that transition.
How would you?
My turn. So currently I'm the Assistant Sporting Director with US Soccer Federation. How this pertains to this specific panel is I used to be a former professional athlete for 16 years. Played most of my career in Europe. Played with the senior men's national team for over 10 years. And so I think this is extremely important because this is something that I personally went through. I don't think there's one specific pathway in regards to this process, but I'm really interested to speak with the panelists to give some ideas to everybody else listening and to hear from the audience as well.
Guilherme?
Employed in my beautiful city, Lisbon, Portugal.
Of course.
I am Guilherme Van Cooper, CEO of the Berlin Sports Group. We have a company already running for almost 20 years. The Berlin Sports Group, we basically have a sports law firm, Berlin Sports Law, an agency, Berlin Sports Bridge for Talents, and a consultancy firm, Berlin Sports Consulting. We have been advising more than 2,000 clubs and players worldwide, whether on the legal perspective, helping them with FIFA, CAS, contracts, and then, of course, also everything concerning agency, where I'm helping players all over the world making their transfers. But particularly for football players and ex-football players, we have been helping them also collecting their pensions, collecting also entitlements they should have received during their careers. So we have worked a lot with players. And of course, when we help them do this, we also start to advise them on their post-careers, what they should do, in which way they could direct themselves after the careers. So it's a topic that I love, and thank you so much to SoccerX also for the opportunity to be here speaking about this.
Alex, we already heard from Obuchi that there is no one single path to go from being, I don't know how to describe it, from being a professional athlete, of course, to being, I don't want to say ex-professional, what do you call it? To be in a new phase. That works.
Yeah.
So, but is there common themes that you find that the athletes go through in that phase, in that process?
Absolutely. There's a loss of community, there's a loss of identity, there's kind of an overwhelming and paralyzing pressure to figure out that exact right thing that's next. And similar to what Obuchi said, there's not really one next thing, and many times that first step leads to other things, and it evolves and changes over time. But the thing that I found most powerful when I work with people at an elite level making that transition is feeling like you're never going to find something you love that much again, and you have to sacrifice that for what comes next. And the reality is there's many things that we can love, there's many things that we are great at and that can translate, and so just having that hope that you have a next career that you can still impact the world, you can still be passionate about, and just, you'll find your way there eventually.
Obuchi, you're now taking decisions, so you've made that jump. Do you recognize those words, that nothing is going to be the same as being on the pitch?
That's a good question. Because one of the comments that you just made, like, are you still a professional? And when I speak to players, I really focus on the fact that professional is a state of mind, and being a pro is probably a state of being, right? So I was once a pro, but I'm always a professional, regardless of what state I'm doing. And I think it's important to maintain that mindset in whatever you do, because that mindset is actually what got these players to where they are right now, to the height of their career. If you follow that same structure and that same process and that same unbreakable mindset, I think you'll be successful in whatever pathway that you choose to go moving forward. But yeah.
Part of that professional mindset is that you know what you need.
That's not true.
But you think you know what you need. That better said, perhaps.
Yeah, I think a lot of pros, because we're embedded in this sport, it's all we know. And then when you come to the end of your career, this is when the questions start floating around your mind of what do I know? What do I do outside of this sport? And for myself, and I tell players when I mentor them, is take the pressure off of you and don't try and figure out what you want to do, but reverse engineer it and eliminate what you don't want to do or what you don't like. And you'll find out that the options after that are a lot smaller than the possibilities before that question.
So I want to take it to Guillermo, who helps answering those questions or those doubts, no? But I just wonder if you start first with the missteps that the professionals take when they go into the net phase. What mistakes do they make that you have to correct, or in a kind of charming way to
One of the things I always love to say is, I think also as a football agent you should do and help your players for that is, I wrote an article a few weeks ago which I called The Agent of the Future. And I said that the agent of the future should look way more than only representing a player, helping cutting the next move, actually preparing his player in terms of mindset and all kinds of different areas, not only for the career, but for all the challenges they will take, and also preparing themselves for what's coming next, to take a bit of pressure before. So, for example, I would say, which and you will correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that a few years ago, no one would talk about mental health, how do players feel, how was the pressure, and I think it's also the role of the people that are with the players, the agents, the managers, the consultants, to actually say something like, okay, I want to care about your nutrition in this way, so we have the best in this area. But I also want to care about your mental health, so we need to surround yourself with the best psychologist. I also want you, for example, to know about financial literacy from a young age, because throughout your career, everyone will be around you. Everyone would want for you to make investments. And of course, if you are 25 or 26 and you start to make bad life choices, this will also harm you outside of the pitch. So we need to have this professional background, this professional mindset that would allow you to go to the next level. And the people surrounding you, they must help you on that.
So Alex, you helped hundreds of professionals to transition. One way to understand that process is hearing Guillermo and Aguchi as well. But can you put us the worst case you've ever found? Don't mention names. And what you had to do to actually transform that mindset, perhaps?
The worst case that I've found has been actually someone unhoused, and empowering them to recognize their value and self-worth again when, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, that base level is not being met, is very challenging. So when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about what's next, you're thinking about surviving. You're thinking about your next meal, what's happening day to day. And honestly, when I talk with some of these female athletes, it's very similar. There's a lot of parallels, right? They're having to hold many jobs while trying to play. They're getting paid less than $10,000 a year, some $2,000, $3,000 a year. And so they're already having to try and transition a career while having a career. And that's very challenging. So when Guillermo talks about having, the support of the agents, that's incredible. We also need support of the infrastructure. We need the clubs. We need the federations. We need, everybody involved in the world of sport to be making sure we're setting up the right infrastructure because that's sadly probably not an anomaly. And the average transition time for players to be re-employed is about 3 years. It's a long period of time when you go from having a community and a structure and a job and pay to finding what comes next. So talk about future planning, we have to be able to build what's now and give them what they need to survive in the moment as well.
But Richard, you're in that place where you can take decisions and help with all these things and situations. But before I ask you particularly about that, what was like the day where you didn't need to go to training?
It's the best day of my life. No, fortunate for me, my transition after playing wasn't like I stopped and I didn't know what to do. I prepared myself, thanks to my support system, my family, really instilling me from the day I was a pro that this will end and you need to know what you want to do afterwards. And so in theory, and I always tell players this or people this, preparation doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. And I didn't know the things that I was preparing for would have set me up for the role that I have right now. I had no idea. And you won't know until it's time, right? And so I always say, take this opportunity, do that course. Oh, I don't want to be a coach. I said, okay, no problem. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I remember when I signed up for the coaching license 5 years ago, and I knew I never wanted to be a coach. That's the last thing I ever wanted to do, but I did it anyway. And the first day of the course, all the cohort had to stand up and explain why they're in this course. You know, everyone's like, I want to be a pro coach, I want to be in college coach, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I stood up and I said, I don't want to be a coach at all. And the instructor was looking at me like I had 6 eyes. And I said, well, I eventually want to be in a position where I manage coaches, and this course will help me to understand the psyche and the process of a coach. So regardless whether I'm coaching or not, this is really important to me to understand their environment and how they react within their environment. So there's method to madness, right? That preparation helped me, not to be a coach, but to help me better prepare in this position in some way, shape, or form. So just like when you're an athlete, you're in a game, ultimately there's one of two outcomes. You're gonna win, you're gonna lose, right? Sometimes you're gonna tie. But you risk it, right? You understand the possibility of failure, but also understanding that within our ecosystem of being an athlete, failure isn't a period, it's a comma, right? So failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the pathway to success. And so I kept that mindset in everything that I did. And I can tell you later on in this how many rejections I had after a playing career, trying to get to where I wanted to, and understanding, okay, why did I get rejected? What do I need to do? How do I need to reposition myself? What do I need to learn? If I can't do it, what do I need to access or network or learn? And how do I put myself in a better position? And so I think that growth mindset and that commitment to not give up really, well, that I had from being a professional really propelled me in my after professional career towards any kind of a success that I've attained.
Okay, Alex, so Gucci comes to you and says, it's not working. I've finished, I just keep being rejected. You more or less answered it anyway, what you've been, what the next step that you have to take.
I stole her answer.
But what would you say? What would you suggest to him?
If he's being rejected, let's talk about your interviewing skills. No, it's all about how you're presenting yourself and being able to make that connection. I was sharing this the other night. As Aguchi mentioned, right, you have so many incredible skills and talents that you develop to get to that elite level. You know, there are things that are directly transferable to many other careers, but people are lazy. They don't want to make that connection for you, right? So you have to be able to articulate what it is that you do, how you can benefit them, how your skill set is what they need to get to the next level. And that comes from understanding yourself on a deeper level, right? What do I do well? What do I not do well? What do I not want to do, right? What do I want to do? And being able to niche down and understand your values alignment as well as your skill set, because those two need to intersect for you to really be great at what you do and enjoy it, and be able to articulate that for people. So that's probably what I would advise.
It's like breaking into a real session. Yes, it sounds like very good advice, and you sound like you also were open to advice because you were prepared beforehand. But Guillermo, when you get to have that first conversation with an athlete where you say, "You're doing great, right? But there is another life out there once you finish." Have you found it difficult? Have you found people that didn't want to listen, that you have to choose the right moment?
I had a lot of them that didn't want to listen, and I think the problem is, I remember that I had a conversation with a really famous goalkeeper who was one of the best in the world, and he was telling me, the thing is that when you are a professional football player, you believe that all your purpose and all your life is around you being a professional football player. You believe that that's why people like you. You, of course, sometimes don't enjoy the pressure and so much, or don't enjoy the attention of the media, but you are used to it. So people start to be a bit scared of, okay, what's gonna happen once I finish? Once all the attention is over, who am I as a person? So what's my identity? Am I only a football player, or am I also a human being? And I think they struggle a lot with that. I remember that I saw an interview of Thierry Henry with Stephen Bartlett in his podcast, and he was saying, when I was at my top, it was exactly the time when I was feeling more the mental pressure, the mental health issues, the depression, and people just think this guy has a perfect life, and they don't see that internally. A lot of the times they are facing battles. So that's why I say that if you have an early preparation, Michael Gucci was saying, like having a professional surrounding, a professional background, they would say, look, you are a professional football player, but you have endless possibilities after this. You just need to open to them and don't fear them. So maybe it's, let's do a coaching course. Will I be a coach? You don't know, but you're opening a door, and then let's see. Will I be a football executive? Will I work in a federation? I mean, if they open to this, for example, now FIFA is launching a lot of executive courses for football players, so one day they can actually do this boots to boardroom and become executive, a little bit the course that Oguchi did now going into the federation. And you need to advise the athletes that that's not the end. And if then you need to reset after you end the career, even for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, to understand what you want to do, it's fine. Everyone goes through this, independently of being a football player, famous or not famous or not.
The thing is, Alex, that they're full of skills that are so necessary, or that can be used, or are sought after in the outside world. So I suppose it takes a while to convince them, but that's something I'm sure that you would tell them.
Of course. For example, right, strategy of the game. That can be applied to business strategy, analytics, being able to pivot and adapt quickly and see what's ahead of you on the pitch. All of that are skills that you would not envision translating, but they do. Being able to adapt on the fly, being able to adjust your strategy, being able to take feedback. You're being coached your whole life of how to do things better, how to do things differently. Being able to take feedback in the corporate world is a huge asset, right? Being able to get to the level where you're that elite athlete, you're not only taking feedback from coaches, you're probably also self-diagnosing. You're getting really good at understanding what you need to do better and how to make those adjustments. And that is what makes an elite player in the corporate world as well, right? Being able to self-diagnose without someone telling you, hey, you're doing this wrong. It's like, that didn't work. So what do I need to adjust and adapt? And there's leadership, there's goal orientation, there's resilience, right? There's the mindset, the intense mental and physical component of elite athletes absolutely translates. You just have to be able to understand what you're trying to pivot to, and you can draw from almost any experience you have. I used to talk about, I use this as an extreme example, right? I used to talk about how working in a restaurant as a server, you know, but being able to delight customers and work under pressure and memorize things and repeat it back to people quickly, like even those are skills that I can translate. When I look back at, I started a snowball stand with the neighborhood kids and hired them and paid them wages. Like, oh, I was an entrepreneur at age 12, you know? So there's always things in your background and things you're doing outside of soccer and sport as well that you can pull from and learn from and figure out what else you can do with those skills.
There is a reason why football players at 20 are the oldest 20-year-olds that are in the world, because you go through absolutely so much. And then of course at the end of your career, again, the huge amount of experiences, as Alex was saying, can help you. But this is the stupid question of the panel. Being a defender, does that help you in the next phase or not?
Being a defender? It's a good question. I've done a bunch of, within different organizations, psychological testing to find out the kind of leader, the kind of person I am. And actually, how I lead or how I work is directly correlated to specific defenders. I found that out last year. Maybe it does, I don't know if it's for everybody. I think for myself, to both of your points that you just made, I've always entered this sport. First of all, this sport I loved. It gave me everything in my life, my platform, my career, my current job, everything. But I always identified that it wasn't who I was, it was what I did. And I had the differentiation between the two. And so when everyone was always like, you know, you're a soccer player, I was like, no, I play soccer. You know, I'm not a soccer player, I'm a Gucci Anyeru. I'm much more than just a soccer player. I'm a son of immigrants, I speak multiple languages, I did da-da-da-da-da. I can give you a list of who I am that has nothing to do with the job that I perform on a daily basis, right? And understanding that for people really helps them in that identity crisis that they fall into, because a lot of people, to your point, they don't know what they love outside of what they do. And there's a world of possibility, even outside of our sport, that you could fall in love with and you just had no idea that this was possible to bring you joy. Which goes back to my point in previously, like try a lot of things. You don't know what you don't know. And you can learn something that, hey, it brings you so much more joy than playing ever did. I recently spoke to a coach, and he said the feeling that he gets when his team wins is 10 times more intense than any feeling he got as a player when he won. I personally don't understand it because I'm not a coach, but you know, for him to find that passion, it was incredible, and he didn't know that existed before he got into the pathway of coaching. And even more so, he didn't know he wanted to be a coach until his career started coming to an end. So this is an extremely important subject. One, because I am a firm believer that we need our current athletes in our ecosystem to help lead the push. We need people that have soccer knowledge or sports acumen within our organizations. You know, I can't tell you the number of people that I know that work for different clubs or federations, XYZ, and they come to me and they're like, these people have no idea about the sport. They're business people, which is great, but you need to couple that with some experience within the sport to really have a holistic 360 view of how to push this forward and how to propel this, not just for the players, but for the fans and the ecosystem as a whole.
What you mentioned, a world of possibilities out there. But I just wonder, Guillermo, if you had to tell this goalkeeper you were talking about, or somebody like that who'd been at the elite, says, yeah, you could get into sports, but there's this automobile company that has nothing to do with the sports, and it'll be good for you for whatever reason. Do they listen? Is that a hard conversation too?
It's a matter of how you put it as well, I would say. And let me just get back on your question, but also highlighting two things that Oguchi and Alex said, which is the set of core values that the professional players have is so intense. They are used from a young age to need to learn about team spirit, resilience, handling pressure, also accepting rules from the coaches, from the staff, having schedules, having like a really aligned life on all sets. Imagine that you can take this set of values, of core values you have, and you transport it to a different area. It's insane. How many 30, 32, 33-year-old guys have such a strong set of core values? Sometimes we have people at their 30s that are still finishing their degrees and deciding what to do. And these guys had 20 years since the age of 8, 9, 10 handling these things. So what they can do is endless, whether it's in football, whether in an automobile company. So you had Flamini, for example, he opened this crazy pharmaceutical, company with, got a millionaire, way more money than in football. So there are really endless possibilities. And whether you apply it, and of course if you apply it in football, I'll be happy, of course, because you would benefit a lot for having the experience for people that were on the pitch, but then they were able to put these core values and this set of tools at the disposal of the football people and of the organizations. But at the same time, there are so many different areas that would benefit from these strong individuals. So 100% they would listen if you put it this way, like, be okay, go for it. There is more in life than football if you want to be outside.
You know, to that point, a lot of athletes, because they were successful in their sport, they find themselves at the end behind in life because their counterparts went to school, they got jobs, which is, you know, its own issue in itself. But I always tell them, I was like, you have a PhD in this sport, right? Different than anybody else. You have a perspective that is extremely unique. You have networking skills. You have a Rolodex that these people don't. You know, they have their own benefits, right? They had their education, they did this. But don't underestimate the power that you acquired throughout these years. You weren't just a soccer player, you know? You were in marketing, you were promoting, you were networking, you were leading, you were doing all these things, to your point, Alex, that are transferable to any sector, any organization, if you know how to package it.
Which is interesting because yes, you've been coached, you have discipline, you've been forced to do a series of things that sometimes you don't want to do as a defender, as a midfielder, but if you have Maverick, there's less rules. I don't know if there's a point of studying what kind of player you were to see how difficult or easy it is going to be to adapt. I mean, you were saying that as a defender, it helped you transition, if you like. But I don't know if you found, Alex, people that just had their own rules on the pitch, and there are those.
100%. That's your style, right? So if your style is the Maverick, then you're the salesperson, you're the entrepreneur. You're the person that's not afraid to get out there and make their own way, you know? And so it's, when we talk about strengths are different than values, are different than your style, are different than your wants and your needs and your non-negotiables, all of those packaged together are what direct you into what comes next. And so you have to really, truly understand how you function best and in what environments you're going to thrive, because that's another tool in your toolbox to eliminate things that are not going to work for you. And you know, to earlier point, right? Try everything. Be curious. Like, I don't have a football background, but I come into this space and I'm just asking a million questions because I want to understand. And that's how I got where I did. I didn't have a background in HR and talent coaching when I was a dancer, right? But I come into the space and I'm like, tell me more. What is it about that, right? Asking questions. It's a skill in of itself. And so I think being able to be curious and with yourself and curious with your surroundings and constantly put yourself in the position to absorb more, learn more, recalibrate, readjust, right? It's going to help you continue to refine.
And do you find, Alex, that there is enough Alexes and Guillermes in the world to support players once they retire, or could institutions do more?
No. I do think the institutions need to do much more. From what I've learned, and transparently I'm still learning, there's really not a lot of support. So what the research has shown, at least, is that people that continue their career while playing outside of football have an easier job transitioning, which makes sense, right? But then we're talking about two different problems. So let me package that for you. The people that are predominantly in male sport, right? They come out and they need to make that transition. And so we should be providing more infrastructure for them while they're going through their playing career in understanding and packaging those skills. I think what Isabel mentioned yesterday on the panel of what they're doing in Italy for the women's group is incredible. They're looking at them as a whole human being, right? What other skills, we're not teaching you just to be a player, we're teaching you to be a whole person. What other skills can you apply? That type of infrastructure, networking. Dallas apparently is doing a program where they're doing job mentorship and coaching every month with each player. And so they're meeting with people and they're doing some job shadowing to understand, do I like this? Do I not like this? You know, who can they connect me with to learn more? And those types of infrastructural programs in and of themselves would get people a lot further in helping players transition. In the women's side, however, right, because they are having to hold multiple jobs while still playing professionally, if we're seeing this injection of millions of dollars in the sport and we're anticipating, all of this growth in the sport, how are we going to support those players to focus on the sport versus having to do so many other things?
If we only had somebody in authority in this panel. Maybe once you can help us a little bit. I mean, what is the thinking, or what are the steps are that you know of the federation is taking, or is there conversations going on?
Yeah, there are a number of conversations being had about how do we best set up players for success in their after career, whether that be access to coaching courses or other professional development courses, specifically sporting director courses or marketing or commercial, internships, externships, partnering with different professional organizations. So that conversation has been had. I have definitely spearheaded that because I know the importance of the after career, keeping players involved in the games, how their opinions and experiences matter. I would also say that players have to have the understanding that they have a part to play in this as well. I always tell individuals, I ask them if they have a mentor, and they scratch their head and they're like, what's a mentor, And for me, having a mentor helped me immensely in my process to see things in a way that I didn't see, because they had the experience that I hadn't yet acquired. They had the visibility, the knowledge to tell me what to do, even though I didn't know to do that. Case in point, I used to be a TV analyst, as you know. I used to be behind the desk. I never, ever wanted to be on TV. I always said I didn't want to be on TV. People try to always force me on TV. And I presented that to my mentor, and he said, do it. I said, no, I don't want to be on TV. I don't want them to force me in this box. I don't want to do that. That's not my passion. I want to be an executive. I want to be in the front office. He said, you should do it. I said, why? And his response was, well, you want to lead people. I said, yeah. He said, you need to know how to speak with people, correct? I said, yeah. He said, this will give you so many reps with public speaking, how to condition your audience, how to present certain aspects in a way that other environments wouldn't help you. So he's like, this is a great crash course to leading people without you even knowing. And me as a naive individual in that moment, I didn't even see that until he showed me that pathway. And I had a great time with CBS, obviously. It was an extreme amount of fun, but it also gave me reps in terms of public speaking, presentation, how I carry myself, my cadence in speech, my tone, how to condition what I'm saying to different individuals at different moments. And I would have never even thought of that side if my mentor didn't really push me in that way. So if you're a former athlete, current athlete, and you don't have a mentor, please think about it. There's a lot of people around you that could help you, even if they're outside of soccer. My mentor is not in professional soccer, he's a businessman. But I think that is an extremely important aspect to success after career.
Yeah, and I want to expand on that because I think you bring up a very, very valid point, is that self-advocacy and that ownership, right? So I think what I'm learning about the culture of the sport is that it can be very siloed. And so you're competing against your teammates, right? So it activates this culture of me versus you. And in reality, you need people to get you where you want to go. You could be the best person at what you do, you could be the smartest in the room. If nobody is listening to you or connecting you to the right people, it truly doesn't matter. So restructuring the psychology of this culture around, we need each other to get where we're trying to go. We need our network, we need mentors, we need programs, we need help with things, and that's okay. The Wellness Universe is putting together a program. For example, they've been doing a pilot program with TPN, where they're offering a ton of different mental, emotional health and career well-being services. And just even getting players over that barrier of taking advantage of it is a challenge, because the psychological culture that's being created is that of siloing people and not being able to ask for help. And I've restructured and helped restructure enough organizations to know that if it's not fundamentally embedded in the culture, that's gonna be a hard change. But there's also no one approach, right? It's multifaceted, so it's on the player, it's on the coaches, it's on everybody involved around the sport to help activate those things and make sure that it's changing.
Allow me just one second, Liam, but it's a really important point. And I was about to say that it's really important that we push organizations, institutions to, of course, do more for this transition of players' career. But I think if we just wait for that, we also don't go anywhere. We hope that we can make some pressure on that point. But like you were saying, we see, for example, Alex here and there with the Wellness Universe, we see a lot of members from the TPN organization, current players, former players, and I would say it's so good to see them involved already from an early stage of their careers, because like we were saying before, it's not when you end your career that you need help. It's like, okay, now it's over, what about tomorrow? Now I don't know. You need this. I was talking about, for example, FIFA, these executive courses. Most of them are for ex-players. But the players that are still playing, when they start to get to the age that they, okay, it's maybe 5 years left, 4 years left, what I would do, these are the times that they will need this help. So when you see this kind of initiatives, TPN, Wellness Universe, what you guys are doing, you immediately see that you are preparing them while they are still playing to have this new set of competencies of learning throughout the process that can definitely make them transition in a better way. And this is really impressive.
I may need your help, the three of you, on this one, because we are talking mostly about best case scenarios. There's people that transition, they have to adapt, they struggle, but then they may get there. But we're also hearing there is addiction to adrenaline, to a lot of to betting, to a lot of things that you need more than just words to be helped with. Is there enough support for it? And is it just a small number of athletes we're talking about, or a bigger one that has been mentioned? What do you know, any of you?
I would maybe just start quickly. It's also the role of an agent and of a consultant to even talk about things like management of dopamine, which is, people usually are addicted to this high intensity on the pitch and always wanting to have these injections of adrenaline that brings dopamine to the higher level, having the crowd. And then we know that when you get to this, also the way that dopamine regulates, they go down. So it's only with you adding this idea of working, building, training, this is the only way that you can actually regulate this in levels that these injections, they stay more overstabilized. So if you don't have anyone with you, helping you throughout the process, and of course you'll get addicted most likely to things that give you instant gratification, whether it's betting or instant money, or there's this amazing deal, you're gonna earn millions and immediately go for it because your friend told you so. And this is the role for everyone surrounding to make sure that tell them, wait, let's analyze, let's think about it, and I bet that you had millions of people throughout your career wanting you to do investments, to put money here, money there, friends that were not there and then suddenly appear because you are playing in the club X or the club Y, and I would say that this is difficult to manage.
Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, just like when you're an athlete, everything falls under two buckets: decisions and discipline, right? Your decision is your goal setting. So you decide what you want to do. You decided, I want to be this X, Y, Z, or I want to do this X, Y, Z. And the discipline is that goal getting. And a lot of people don't have the persistence and that discipline part to actually attain that decision that they made. And so for me, it's like reverse engineer it. If you want to do this, what has to be true in order for that to happen, right? If I want to be an executive or a marketing this, I can't just waltz into it. Oh, I need to get maybe an internship, or I need to get more education, or I need to take this course. Understand that first, because that will simplify the entire process. As an athlete, you want to be the best. That was your decision. Your discipline was training every day, waking up, eating right, not going out, ... It doesn't change in the world after sports. Your discipline has to be just as strong to attain that end goal as it was when you were on the field or on the court.
Noguchi, Alex, Guillermo, fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have one. Quick question. So I'm going to put my finger on an acute situation that can turn into a chronic situation.
Okay, so thank you. First of all, brilliant coverage and addressing the systems and everything that's behind all of this. My question is, and I'm going to put my finger on an acute situation and this was already brought up, players don't think about their career transition and the future until they're already at that happening. And sometimes we know that players sometimes have an untimely exit because of situations in their career as a player. One of the acute situations is the lack of money. And let's talk about this for 1 second, because this is a real thing. And as you addressed, Jeremy, getting your pay sometimes when you don't get paid, or collecting on a club, on your paycheck that you didn't receive. And then already you're in the hole, especially as a female player, because you get such low pay. And then you come out of that, and then you think to yourself, where am I going? What am I doing? And as said, like, you don't even think of these things and who you are until you're there. So my question is, what advice would you give to a player because they're so desperate just to make ends meet when they come out? Because this right now you can speak directly to players. What advice would you give to that human being to make it through? Because if they don't even have enough money to survive, they're back at home living with their folks. When they've been abroad, when they've been independent, when everything's been paid for, they don't even understand like what rent is. They don't even understand the expenses in life. And they need to now make the transition. So in that acute situation, so it doesn't turn chronic, what advice would you give to them? And anyone, it's open to anyone.
Everyone looks at me.
I'll take it. You put me on the hot seat. I'm putting it right back on you.
No problem. So what I would say is, that's an incredibly difficult situation to deal with at first, and I'm not even going to pretend to like understand that mindset, right? What I would say is, you can't be afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of assistance that people have no idea exist. There's subsidized help, there's just free things, and us as in human nature, everybody wants to do it themselves. I can do it, I can handle this, You know, your ego and your self-esteem won't allow you to extend a hand to say, hey, I'm drowning, can you help me? And then, you know, we, as US Soccer, there's a lot of things that come to us after the fact, and we're like, why didn't they bring this to us in the first place? And maybe we need to do a better job at letting people know that we're advocates to help. Like, our position is to support our ecosystem and make everybody thrive. So a simple way, and I know this is not the end response, is like, ask for help. Because if the person that you're asking doesn't know it, maybe they know somebody else that does down the line.
Yeah, and I would just add on that, I think that's a perfect answer. Ask for help, but also recognize most people want to help. So I've been in a similar situation, and it wasn't ego for me, it was not wanting to burden someone. And always like, you know, pulling myself up by my bootstraps, you know, I'll do it myself. And so recognizing most people want to help, and we all go through it, and it's just a transition. It's a temporary transition. You do what you need to do, ask people for help, get through that moment, and then worry about what's next, right? But just remember, it's not a reflection on you. You didn't fail. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a transition, and we all go through them. We all have highs, we all have lows. You work through it, you learn from it, you get better on the other side.
Nobody got to where they're at without help from somebody else. That's point blank. Nobody in this room is where they are without a helping hand from somebody else.
That's a great point, and just in 30 seconds, and we need to think also about a different perspective, because you have the players that didn't have high paychecks, and they need, of course, to understand what are we going to do after, and of course it's really concerning for them, and they need, like Alex said, to take their time, to make their decisions. But you also have a different thing, which is players that earn a tremendous amount of money, but they have tremendous amount of expenses, and there is one day that it's like that, because you are used to get millions every year, and the next day the sponsorships are over, the career is over, the salary is not in the account at the end of the month, but you have tremendous amount of expenses. How will you do? So I bet there are players that received way less but were able to control because they had people next to them that were helping with that. And you have players that maybe earn millions and maybe 3 years after the careers they are broke. So we also need to understand both perspectives that we need to be there for them.
I've stolen 5 minutes, so we've got time for 2 questions. If anybody else wants to ask.
So my question kind of pertains to like the education of the job. So me having been here, I'm a professional soccer player and I'm still playing. But I've come to find out that there's a lot more jobs than just coaching and sporting directors. But how can we make this information available to like the general public? Because I mean, yeah, we're here, there's 10 of us, but there's a group of 600 and some of us who don't know that there's jobs where we can merge education and sports. So what's a better way that we can kind of share this information and share what other jobs are available in the realm of sports that isn't just your basic coaching or sporting director roles?
The short answer is there's a lot of different platforms. I know specifically on soccer that if you sign up for newsletters, they give you, I remember 6 years ago when I was looking for it, they just give you every single position open domestically, overseas. And that's part of the side that I said, you got to take this step forward, right? This stuff is Googleable. You can find out one is called Jobs in Football, specifically, like Jobs in Football. Sign up to that newsletter and you'll see whatever jobs you're hoping to get, click on that, and every time something opens, you'll get that email pushed out to you. So there's no like one way to know every magical role, but there's so many different platforms that help you gain awareness to what's available.
Create an app and then put everybody together in an app. Have an idea that has to be.
The back end of that is cool, like I know all the jobs, but oftentimes if you don't know somebody, you're not gonna get hired. Everybody in this day and age is hiring, but nobody is actually hiring. So how do you make those personal connections when you just know that these jobs are available?
What you guys are doing. So it's a great example. You are at SoccerX now. You could have been home chilling and doing some other things, but no, you are here, you are connecting with people, you are interacting, and like Oguchi was saying, maybe you don't want to be on TV, but someone really well told you, no, you need to be there because you need to meet people. If you want to have a voice, you need to show yourself. So this is also what you should do. Be part of these organizations, be active on speaking out and show your voice to the world. And then let's think about something. Someone was telling me yesterday that 53% of the CMOs, the chief marketing officers of football clubs, are women. So imagine, for example, that you have someone that ends the career, does a marketing degree or does a marketing course, and then can apply not only the marketing concepts you are learning, but then the real experience of being out there. Look at the essence that you will become. So that's why I believe there are endless possibilities you can take. Just be out there, speak with people, interact, put yourself, because maybe you are meeting 10 people now, and then the next day someone remembers you and say, look, this ex-football player or current football player is probably ending the career in 1 year and we have this position, why don't we call? So,
best publicity for SoccerX, thank you very much. Last question? Anybody? Otherwise, we'll call it what? Oh, sorry.
Hi everyone. Just a quick question. You guys spoke about it quick. And it's regarding mentorship. It's something that I've heard a lot in my career, and I think it's important what you said, because if you look at someone outside of the industry, how did that impact you? And for someone that's starting off, like, I think for me, yeah, you can reach out to anyone to be a mentor, but how did you build that relationship with someone that you knew internally? Was it someone that you just always looked up to and so on?
Yeah, mine specifically was, he was recommended to me by somebody else, helped me not only in that aspect that I explained, but a multitude of different interviews that I had, specifically with US Soccer, how I structured my presentation, how I timed it, the PowerPoint, everything. Like, it was my presentation, but he really helped me professionalize it in a way. to give and show my unique perspective. So there's no, I mean, I'm not saying look for somebody outside of your sport. There could be the best mentor in your sport. Mine specifically really helped me, and he continues to help me, not just professionally, but in my personal life as well.
I would just add to that, look for someone in a position of where you think you might want to be, right? And then start building a connection, start talking to them. After you get to know them a little bit and you show that initiative, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? Ask, you know? And I will guarantee many people are willing to say yes. That's how I've gotten my strategic mentors in my career. I would also say just be around, network, and talk about what you do and what you want. The more you talk about it and share with people, you end up having these really organic conversations where someone's like, oh, it sparks something for them, and I actually know someone that does that, let me connect you with, right? So the more that you're around what you want to be doing and exploring, if you're still figuring out what that is, right? You're talking to people, you're sharing, you're having organic conversations, and then you're strategically pinpointing the people in positions you think you may want to be in. You ask them for that.
Great advice, lots of experiences. We doubled up the audience while we were talking, so that's always a good sign. So again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.